The ground effect era has been a rough one for the FIA. Under the often questionable leadership of Mohammed Ben Sulayem, we saw countless controversies on and off track as the technical regulations appeared to fall short of their stated aims. The ground effect era, which started in 2022, was meant to be a new dawn for Formula One, a return to the close racing of decades ago. The cars were meant to produce far less dirty air, allowing for closer following, but that never really happened, and drivers were almost entirely reliant on DRS to get overtakes done. Then there was the embarrassing arrival of porpoising, the uncomfortable phenomenon which made it look like F1 had done a crossover with lowrider culture. Things improved over time, but here we are heading into 2026 with Ben Sulayem still in charge. However, the FIA have admitted to the big mistakes they made with the last set of regulations. Today, I'll check it out, so don't go anywhere. With 2025 now behind us, so too are the ground effect regulations. As far as technical regulations go, F1 has had better, but it's also had worse. When they were introduced in 2022, there was so much excitement about how good they could be. Dirty air was meant to be massively reduced, meaning that the performance loss when following closely behind another car would be much less, allowing for far closer racing. We saw some exciting designs at that first preseason testing as well, like Mercedes' zero-pod design, which made some people think we could see a really varied grid in terms of design for a few years. However, there were problems. The plan to reduce dirty air had failed. It was better than the previous regulations, and the racing was closer, but it was still a big problem. In particular, the front wing produced a lot of outwashing dirty air, basically negating the improvements made at the rear end of the car. However, I think as fans, as a whole, the ground effect era has been enjoyable to watch. Yes, there were some dud races, but that's always the case in F1. Yes, 2023 was essentially completely missable, but still, there was plenty to get excited about. However, the FIA have done something extraordinary. They've admitted to one big mistake. The FIA previously indicated that things moved in the right direction with the ground effect regulations, but the governing body does not give itself full marks in all areas, and that is because of porpoising. In 2022, porpoising proved to be a major headache, but even after that, the discomfort never fully disappeared. Several drivers complained about physical issues, as Max Verstappen remarked in Las Vegas that at times, "My whole back is falling apart." Reflecting on the past rule cycle, single-seat director Nicholas Tombazis acknowledged that the importance of ride height was underestimated by the FIA. The fact that the optimum ride height of the cars moved so much lower was a miss in the 2022 regulations, Tombazis said. "It's something that we missed, and not only us but also the teams. In all discussions, nobody raised that issue. It was something that became obvious very close to the start of the championship, when it was too late to change the regulations. The initial porpoising, which hasn't totally disappeared, but has obviously improved massively, was also something that had not been anticipated. I wish we'd done better there." However, the FIA rejected the suggestion that these ride height issues could have been solved if it had given teams less freedom with suspension. "We don't believe that suspension changes would have had a first-order effect," he said. "It would perhaps have given them a different set of options, but we don't think the simplification of the suspension rules would have had a first-order effect." The eventual solution was to simply punish the teams whose cars were porpoising to dangerous levels. The FIA basically said, "If you're going to endanger your drivers, we are going to disqualify your cars." Drivers and teams always want as much performance as possible, even if the bouncing got so bad that some competitors were struggling to get out of their cars unaided after races. That was when the skid wear came into play. The FIA started to very closely examine the wear underneath the cars after each race, constantly tightening the tests they did over the course of the regulations. The result was a number of disqualifications. There was a 2023 US Grand Prix where Hamilton and Leclerc were disqualified, and many more cars were suspected of being at fault. Then there was 2025's Chinese Grand Prix, which saw both Ferraris disqualified, and more recently with McLaren in Las Vegas. In all cases, checking the plank turned out to be a time-consuming task, which is why not every car was inspected after every Grand Prix. The checks were made even more complex by the fact that different teams used slightly different solutions for the floor and skid blocks. Tombazis did admit that tighter technical regulations could have stopped the problem, but also said that F1 was not an F2-style championship. The teams had to have freedom to design, and he would rather have to do awkward tests after races that remove the soul from Formula One. Next season, ride height and plank wear should be less of a factor. The 2026 regulations still feature a degree of ground effect, but far less than between 2022 and 2025 due to the simpler flaw. The FIA believes this will push the optimal ride height higher and, in theory, should prevent a repeat of the porpoising problems. We believe it is very unlikely to have similar characteristics because of a much flatter floor, said Tombazis. How much the downforce increases as you go lower is not as pronounced with this car as it was in last year's car. We believe that will reduce the chance of porpoising. Of course, there is no way to know for sure until the cars hit the track for the first pre-season testing at the end of January in Spain. Who knows what the FIA might have missed this time around? But the regulations were far from the biggest problem in F1 over the past 4 years. If you ask most fans what their biggest issue is with the FIA, it's Mohammed Ben Sulayem, the president. But before I talk about his re-election, if you're enjoying the video and want to catch all the news and analysis on the 2026 F1 season, then make sure to press the like button and subscribe to F1 Reverse. Thanks a lot. With the excitement over the title battle toward the end of the season, the re-election of the controversial FIA president Mohammed Ben Sulayem may have slipped under the radar of many fans. Not that there was much of an election to be had. The 64-year-old Emirati was unopposed as a result of a quirk of the FIA election rules that prevented anyone else from standing. Ben Sulayem won only 91.51% of the vote in the election, despite being the only person that members could vote for. That means 8.5% of the clubs eligible decided not to vote for the only candidate. Ben Sulayem will serve a second 4-year term ending in December 2029. American Tim Mayer and Swiss Laura Villas had both declared an intention to stand in the election, but were unable to put together the required slate of potential vice presidents. FIA election rules dictate that every candidate must name one person from all the FIA global regions, but there was only one South American on the official list, and Brazilian Fabiana Eccleston, wife of former F1 boss Bernie, was already on Ben Sulayem's team. Ben Sulayem quickly earned the disapproval of fans with his over-involvement in the sport. Despite saying he'd take a hands-off approach to the FIA's crown jewel, he has constantly gotten involved in petty disagreements with the drivers and teams, has been credibly accused of trying to change race results, and is a constant feature on the F1 grid. Ahead of this year's election, he's also removed large numbers of opponents within the FIA, changed the rules to allow him to do what he wants within the organization, and generally aimed to eliminate any kind of democratic process from the organization in moves that can and have been directly compared to FIFA's corruption scandal of 2015. A statement by the FIA following Ben Sulayem's election said his first term had marked a wide-ranging transformation, improving governance, operations, and restoring the financial health of the federation. It also referred to wider institutional reform over the last 4 years, with strengthened budgetary discipline, enhanced external audit processes, and modernized governance structures, resulting in greater transparency, accountability, and professional standards across the organization. All of those things are provably untrue. 2026 is going to be an exciting new era for Formula One, but for its governing body, it's going to be 4 more years of controversy. How do you feel about Mohammed Ben Sulayem returning for another term? And are you surprised to hear the FIA admit their mistakes? Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.